Excellent. Everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. I'd like to set the tone by acknowledging that we are on First Nations country all around the country. I'm on Kaurna land, and I acknowledge elders, past, present, emerging. I acknowledge their sovereignty and their stewardship of the land, and I am very interested in what we can learn from how we work together as communities, from some of that traditional knowledge that of communities who've been maintaining that sort of collective culture for a lot longer than we have, even as all of us battle with individualistic culture and capitalism. I'm the chair, I'm Heather Smith, I'm the chair of Energy Together. Energy Together supports community energy groups all around Australia, and community energy groups do all sorts of things. So we've got everything from
Right.
Hepburn Wind owners, community owners
Pardon?
of energy systems
Well, I
to
don't know. Probably
can
an
I just get
hour,
everyone
I'll
to turn
see
off
how it
their
goes.
to mute their microphones while we go through the presenters, if that's okay. Um,
What is it?
Hang on, I got to find my host tools
Don't
now.
know. Don't know.
On.
Did you get some bread? No.
Audio settings. Let's see if I can turn everybody off. No, that's only me. Um, Okay. Anyway, hopefully that little intervention will get a few of you muting your tool uh, you're finding your mute buttons there. Um, so community energy is all sorts of different things, including energy advice. And of course, energy advice is going to become more and more important as we move towards a decentralized electricity system, as we move our transport into our electricity system. We're doing so much more at the household level and the community level and the small business level that the energy champions in our communities are an important feature of the way forward. So to set the tone, we've got two excellent speakers here today, both from Queensland. But I just thought I would set the tone with three quick slides. We're talking about the solar sharer offer. The solar sharer offer has been launched. It will come into effect on the 1st of July. In Victoria, the regulation, they're not regulated by the Australian Energy Regulator. They're regulated by their own regulator. So they're bringing theirs in on the 1st of October, and theirs will be called the Midday Power Saver, just to keep us all on our toes. And there's a lot of places that aren't regulated by the Australian Energy Regulator. And so, I've sort of identified on the map here who's been covered by the announcements and things that you would have heard under the solar sharer offer. Just to briefly tell you that the Australian Energy Regulator does create these standard offers every year and announces them and announces whether prices are going up or down, depending on what they've agreed. But it's only a really small part of the market. 8 to 10% of homes are on a standing offer. There's now three flavours of standing offers: flat tariffs, time of use tariffs, and this new solar sharer offer. And the solar sharer offer is not going to be automatic for anyone. It's going to be an opt-in element. But I think it's important for us to wrap our heads around these a little bit, because the whole industry uses these standard offers as benchmarks. And so we see a lot of stuff there that helps us understand whether the market offers are a good deal or not. And the market offers are often structured the same way as the standard offers. And the final thing I wanted to say is that the solar sharer offer is limited to up to 24 kilowatt hours a day, which is a lot. That's 8 kilowatts continuously for 3 hours. And all these standing offers are based on load profiles that are much more like half a kilowatt to zero point 0.8 of a kilowatt on average across the whole day. So you can see the 8 kilowatt average is a huge amount. So with no further ado, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass over to Audrey. Audrey comes to us from Energetic Communities in Queensland. They're a long-term member of Energy Together. And Audrey, I didn't get any bios, so you might just say a word or so about yourself as well. And we can't hear you yet, Audrey.
I know.
There we
Sometimes
go.
the buttons disappear when you do certain things. Anyway,
Yes,
here we
that's
go.
right.
Hopefully you can hear me.
If you click back on your photo, you get the control bar floating around somewhere.
All right. Well, thanks, Heather and Energy Together for having me around to talk about Solar Share. What do I do for a living? So I work for Energetic Communities, and we just wrapped up a pretty big 2 energy literacy projects in Queensland. So I spent the last year and a half explaining how tariff works to a lot of people. So that's what I'm going to deliver here. So Solar Share, yeah or nay? Is this for you? Is this not? The quick outline. First, we're going to talk about meters because it's really important. Depending on the meters that you have, you will have access or not. Then I will talk about the language we use within the tariff stuff. Who decides our tariffs? What's a good tariff? And then the kind of tariff we are getting. How does that compare to a good tariff? Then I'll get into Solar Share, and not in too much depth. That would be Philippa role. And then I will try to quickly explain who is this for. All right, just to be sure that you know, they will keep on beating us. They will keep on coming. This is not going to stop anytime soon. And the other little one here, why is the electric bill so high? And then you see the parrot saying, Alexa, turn on the light. Alexa, turn on the TV. Alexa, play music. My point here that I'm trying to make is that you don't have control really as to what is happening in your home, particularly if you have kids. So just keep that in mind for yourself and when you advise other people that the amount of control that we have over our energy consumption is actually relatively low. Meters, the smart versus the others. So here you have a fabulous board that's for an apartment block, and there is 3 types of meter on this board. The old school one, the clock face with the spinning wheels in there. The a bit less old, but still not that recent. And then we have the smartphone, the smart meter, sorry. So the difference is very much about like, you know, what your old school phone used to do. You could get a call, but that was it. Then we got the Nokia phone. We could do call, we could do text messages and some games. But that was it. And then we got the smartphone, right? And that's basically the difference in between all those meters, because the smart meter, unlike all the others, connects to 4G or 5G. So that means it connects to the internet. What does that mean really for you? Not much, apart from the fact that you actually get now actual reading. For the old school meters, you needed someone to come and read your meter. Now, with a smart meter, you're guaranteed to get an actual read. For the others, sometimes you get estimated reads. So that's the main benefit. And then there is another thing that happens when you shift from an old school meter to a smart meter, is that there is a whole bunch of tariffs that are now available to you. So when you were on the old school meters, you only had flat tariffs. And then with the smart meter, you get all sorts of new tariffs available. Keep in mind that by 2030, all homes will have a smart meter. This is mandatory. They are rolling them out. They are coming. So in some regions, you can still choose to remain on a flat tariff, but this is a bit shaky actually. In quite a few jurisdictions, that right is kind of slowly being taken away, eroded. Another things that I wanted to point out is embedded network, which are, you know, a lot of apartment blocks, retirement villages, sometimes caravan parks. They tend to be embedded networks. What that means is that you actually don't really receive a bill from a normal retailer. And for embedded networks, there is no mandate for the rollout of smart meters. So this might come later. We don't have a date. We actually don't know what's happening with embedded networks. Tariff lingo. So I just want to introduce two concepts here, the fixed daily charge, also called supply charge. So this one is just for the pleasure of being connected to the grid, and it is showing on your bill as dollar per day or cents per day. Then we have the variable charge. This one is related to how much power you use, and it usually shows up on your bill as cents per kilowatt hour or dollar per kilowatt hour. This is the tariff we're used to. Here at the top, it's nighttime. At the bottom, it's during the day. And we used to pay the same amount, no matter the time of the day. That was called a flat tariff. Sometimes on your bill, it will show up as anytime, peak, single. Every retailer does something different. So then when the smart meters came around, we ended up with this kind of tariff called the time of use, and TOU when you want to tap your own alphabet soup. So again, at the top here, it's nighttime. At the bottom, it is during the day. So what is to note here is that we have a period of time here that are colored in red is very expensive. Then we have a period of time that is a bit less expensive. And again, in green, a period of time that is even less money. Every retailer uses a different language here. Usually the red one here is called peak, and for the rest, it's a bit of a jumble. So sometimes we use the term shoulder, off-peak, solar soak. Depending on what's on your bill, just pay very much attention as the lengths of the period because they change depending on the retailer, and that's very important. Who decides what? What's going on with all of this? So every year, electric utilities, what I mean by this is generators, transmission, distribution networks, as well as retailers, they make a wish list. They send it to the Australian Energy Regulator, the AER, and the AER decides what is acceptable. Then the AER writes up this beautiful report that you may have seen or heard about in the news, which is called the Default Market Offer. DMO. So the DMO is a standing offer, as Heather explained. So it's kind of the default offer. When you don't shop around, this is the one you be defaulted to. It also acts as a reference price. So all the retailers will compare their deal, their offers to the reference price, to the DMO. And now this is new. It is now a cap because it didn't used to act as a cap, but it is now definitely a cap. They cannot go any higher than this. So what happens is that in July, every year, we are all expected to go shopping, right? So July or after July, the retailers roll out their new tariffs whenever they feel like it. But broadly, in between July and September, most of the offers will be out. So very important to go shopping at that time. Now, let's talk about tariffs. What is a good tariff? And here I'm going to talk about carrots and sticks, you know, incentives versus punishment. So what do we have here? What is a good tariff? According to the research, a good tariff is a tariff that has a lot of carrots so that we actually know what will reward us, right? And then it's a tariff that doesn't have much sticks, but because sticks are scary, right? And we don't tend to take risks with our power bill. So if there is a tariff with a lot of sticks, we kind of don't want it. And fair enough. So if there is not enough carrots and too many sticks, we will stick to a flat tariff if we can. Now, we all get tariffs. We can't escape them, right? So what type of tariffs are we getting? According to the DMO report, this is what we are going to get as standing offers, right? So you can see here, you have your various networks. If you don't know what your network is, it's actually written on your bill. And you can see what the different networks are doing here. And you can see here we have those supply charge, daily charge. They've gone up quite a bit here. This is the new way they recover money, right? It's by making that supply charge quite a bit higher. And then you can see that for the usage charge, it varies quite a bit. And overall, yes, there is overall Queensland seems to be winning here, unfortunately for all of you that are not in Queensland. Right. So I was just talking about carrots and sticks. Flat tariff doesn't have any carrots or sticks, but the time of use tariff that is within the DMO, obviously, we can now talk about carrots and sticks. So what do we see here? I tried to make a little bit of a count, right? So what we're seeing here first is that the periods of time. So here you have the time of the day at the bottom. You can see that the periods for each region actually vary quite a bit, right? It's not always what you think it's going to be. And as you can see, Ausgrid doesn't give you actually a middle period, you know, the in-between times. And that period here is extremely expensive. That's a lot of sticks here, 60 cents per kilowatt hour. It's a lot of sticks. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the Energex here, which is very cheap in the middle of the day. That's time of use. It is not yet solar share. Huh? The time of use here for like 7 cents, it's really cheap and it's a pretty big window. So that's a lot of carrots. And then the sticks are not that big. Yeah, right. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you can think about tariffs. Right, so now let's talk about solar share. It was announced with quite a lot of fanfare. But what does it actually mean for us? So first, I repeat, you need a smart meter. As I said, you have to be in New South Wales, South Australia, or South East Queensland. It is a sending offer, but you have to apply for it. You have to request it. It's not something you would be defaulted to. When does this happen? 1st of July. And if you want more details, there is a report for it. It's called Default Market Offer number 8. All right, what do they look like, those tariffs? So, as you can see, compared to the time of use graph, it got a bit more complicated because they added a period in the middle, right? That $0 period. But that means that for yourself or when you explain to other people, you now have likely to explain 4 different periods in a day. So Ausgrid here is making me laugh. There's only 3 periods, but most of the others have 4 periods. All right, so first thing, periods are varying a lot, right? Like it kind of, you can't make rules, really. There's obviously, for some, as I said, more periods than what was in the time of use tariff. Keep in mind here that the supply charge is basically exactly the same than what it was for time of use. And then you have all over here, that changes quite a bit. What does that mean? Let's talk about carrots and sticks. So here we go. The Ausgrid area, they gave you a bit of carrots, and they gave you 3 hours for $0, but there's still a lot of sticks in this. And again, you can see that Energex is giving you so much carrots because 0, and then outside, just outside of it, it's still 8 cents only. And then it's not going that high at the peak period, right? So there's a few sticks here, but there's a lot of carrots. I hope you're confused, not so confused, maybe. All right, who is this for? How do I choose? Do I stick to a time of use tariff? Do I go to the SSO, the solar sharer? Maybe I should be on a flat tariff. So how do we decide? Here, on the left-hand side, you have at the bottom here, this is the time of the day from midnight to midnight. And genuinely, the peak period tends to be around the end of the afternoon and the evening, right? So this is where it's more expensive, and over here, it's less expensive, right? If your consumption profile, so when the things that you are turning on in the day looks like this, meaning most of your stuff happens during the peak tariff time, during the time at which it's really expensive, and you can't move it, right? Then you probably shouldn't go to the SSO, or even shouldn't go to a time of use tariff. A flat tariff is probably better for you. Now, if your consumption profile looks exactly the opposite, meaning you consume a lot at the time where it's really cheap, then of course, the time of use or the SSO could be for you. This is a very simple explanation. Obviously, every household will have its own little choices to make because our consumption profile never looks that simple. All right. So what are we getting out of the SSO? What are the carrots? What are the sticks? We're getting 3 hours for free. That's quite a bit of carrots. But be aware, for 21 hours, there is 24 hours in a day, there's potentially quite a bit of sticks. Who is this for? It's really for people that have big loads. So what I'm talking about here is appliances that consume a lot of energy, so likely your hot water, or you have a battery, whether it is a home battery or an EV. And those loads are flexible, meaning you can decide when they come on. So for example, your hot water is on a timer. The other thing it's good for is for people that have very good homes. So here at the bottom here, if you have a lot of stars, so homes have star rating for energy efficiency, if your home has 7 stars, it will help a lot to take advantage of the solar share. And Philippa will explain a bit more of this. So the last thing I want to say here is please, 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 for yourself and everyone else you advise, be aware the risks for vulnerable households are great. That's a lot of sticks, right? So if they cannot manage to shift their appliances during that free period, then they will get stung. So the point of the SSO, in spite of how it was announced, is not to level inequalities. That is not what this tariff is doing. So please, 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 when you advise people, make them very much aware that maybe they should hold off for a second. Don't make the decision too quick thinking there is 3 hours for free. Nothing is ever for free. And that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Audrey. I'll get you to turn off your sharing if you can work out how to do that. And we've had quite a few questions about doing a blog with some more detail as well and some of the links. So yes, from me in terms of slides, and I will definitely ask Audrey and Philippa if they're happy to share their slides. And I think there's a number of questions arising in the chat around the politics, and I'll touch on that later. But please, while you listen to Audrey and Philippa, please do put your questions in the chat because some of them that are emerging are quite helpful for us to understand where you're at in this whole process. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Philippa. And Philippa, would you mind introducing yourself as well when you get your screen shared there?
There we go. Hello everyone, I'm Philippa England. I'm a retired academic from Griffith University. I still have some relationship with the university, but a lot more freedom. Since I retired, I invested quite heavily in CER, and so I've become a real enthusiast watching everything that's happening in the grid. And I'm actually really excited about the SSO. So I went for a little bit of an alternative route to Audrey. I did a Queensland specific case study, a little bit more of a deep dive. It basically reaffirms everything Audrey's been saying. So let me just walk you through quickly these slides. Just try and move that over. As you can see, the Queensland SSO, I agree with Audrey, I think it's actually the best in the country. And the reason why is because you get your 3 hours here, 11 till 2, but you then actually get, oops, Daisy, go back. Oh, where have I gone now? How can I go back?
If you right click, you'll be able to go back or page up. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you then get this extra 2 hours at 8 cents, which is dirt cheap power, really, let's be honest. So you've got five hours really of really decent, cheap, very cheap power going on for you, reflective of what's in the grid, the solar soaker that we've got in Queensland. However, the sting is the ouch power time, which is between 4 and 9 p.m., avoiding all the technical lingo. It just hurts because it's 49 cents. And at the other time, it's 26 cents, which is really good because if you look at the DMO flat rate, it's 28 cents per kilowatt anytime. So this has really got some potential here, and it's got me interested. Now, everybody looks at that and sees the ouch power and says, ooh, that's for people with batteries. Okay, well, I am a battery owner, and it occurs to me, well, there are better deals out there if you've got a battery. So does this SSO actually work for anybody? So I'll show you, for example, as a battery owner, you could be on Glowbird. And this is a summary of the main charges in each of these retail offerings. You can get your 3 hours for free there. But what's so exciting for battery owners is that you can get paid $1 if you're not using electricity during the ouch period from 4 till 9. So why would you go on the solar soaker if you can get $1 for using your battery over an evening? So that's the Glowbird. Then again, if you've got an EV, which I thought maybe the SSO was excellent for, if you need to charge overnight, you can get, that should be 4.7 cents from midnight to 6 a.m. for your charging your EV overnight. If you're like me with extra solar, and extra battery storage to your household needs, you could be on flow power and you could be exporting from your battery in the evening and earning 45 cents per kilowatt for a 2-hour period. So that's obviously very attractive to me, and that's what I do. Okay, if over here we've got Amber, you'll probably be aware that you get the wholesale rate with Amber. Well, today it's a beautiful sunny day here in Queensland. So if you were with Amber, you'd be paying something between 3 cents and 8 cents from 8:30 in the morning till 4. Then from 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock, you'd be paying anything up to 35 cents, but less than that for some of that period. And over the night, you'll be paying something like 18 cents. So not always that, of course, it varies with the wholesale market, but it's a pretty good deal. So this caused me to think, well, like I say, who is the SSO really for? And so I did a little bit of a deep dive, and this is what my thinking on it. It's exactly what Audrey says. You need to have a flexible load. And on my reckoning, I did crunch some numbers, and I found that you have to get in Queensland about 60% of your load out of that ouch period. Okay, 60% of your load. So it's not a small amount. Okay, so if you're a low user and a little flexible demand, you maybe don't use any aircon or heating, you don't have a pool, you've got no EV, you're a small household, you're on a tight budget, then really, I mean, Amber is flat tariff is the one for you to keep your costs down overall because you've got little flexible demand. If you can't get a flat tariff, then probably looking at the numbers I just floated before, Amber is a good bet, but of course it's a little bit risky for some people. I haven't looked at all the different time of use retail plans, apart from the ones that really help battery owners. The same goes with the high user with little flexible demand. It's the same story, really. If you do use aircon or heating anytime, especially in the evenings, you come home and put your heating or your aircon on, you've got a fully electrified home, you're the working family, the kids running around doing what they like, then, you're in the same boat. Really, this one isn't for you. You really want to get a flat tariff if you want to be more risky. Amber might give you the lowest prices going overall, not on any, there are some days when that can be a bit traumatic, but fewer and fewer, to be honest, because batteries are bringing down costs overall and bringing down those days of great disparities or changes. However, if you're a low user with mostly flexible demand, as Audrey suggested, the SSO might be you. So you might be a pensioner. You might have a passive home so that you can switch you can cool early, you can heat early, you might have a gas cooker, you might be able to cook more at the midday or just before 4 o'clock, you might be running a pool pump, which is what I was running in our household that got me interested in these things. So they're quite heavy users, and those are all things that can move. So even if you don't have solar, these are all my non-solar households, by the way, I should have announced that. You can get some benefit out of the SSO, probably, you know, proportionately more benefit when you're looking at a high user with mostly flexible demand. And of course, you know, the thing is you mustn't be this person that comes home from work and puts on the air conditioner at night. If you can turn it on beforehand and you've got a very well insulated home, that might be okay. Really good for EV and battery owners. Of course, we don't have many battery owners that don't have solar, but EVs are the one. So if you work from home one day a week, this might be the one for you. That saving might be cancelled out by your use of a lot of aircon, but really EVs are big drawdown of electricity there. And again, large appliances suitable for daytime use. Okay, so these are the people that the SSO might be of interest to you, even if you don't have solar and even if you don't have a battery, of the household battery, that is. Okay, moving on then to the solar household, because the solar households are the ones with batteries at the moment. So this is the one that everybody thinks this works for. Well, again, if you have a small solar and no battery, which is what most solar home households do have still, then this is of no use to you. You know, you still want a flat tariff because you're using electricity right in the middle of the evening when it's most expensive. So if you can't get a flat tariff, then, you know, Amber's probably your next best bet from the ones that I've looked at. Now, that changes when you have small solar and a big battery, or even a small battery possibly, but we'll call that the right size battery. So say you've got small solar and a big battery or an EV. Now this, you might think there are not many people out there, but in actual fact, a lot of homes just said, I already have solar, I'm eligible for a battery, give me a battery. And that's what my daughter did. So she's got a big battery and her solar will no way fill it. So she could use the SSO to help fill her battery in the middle of the day. And she also has an EV. So you can see she's actually a really heavy user. Both of them are flexible. And so she's an ideal person for SSO. So I'm really excited for her. You know, the only catch is she's going to have to charge her EV either from the battery a little bit at a time or in the middle of the day if she gets a day home from work. Alternatively, you know, if she has got enough storage, she could be going with Glowbird and getting that $1 during the evening time. But just be wary, if you're, you know, a big user, the actual rates outside of the free period are quite heavy in the Glowbird and the OVO and the Flow Power. They're actually more expensive than the SSO in someone. So the SSO is really going to be good for people like my daughter, people like townhouses with a limited amount of roof space that they can put solar on, and maybe they're a family of 4, so they're heavy users. Maybe you've got a lot of shading on your roof, or maybe you get an EV before you think about getting rooftop solar and a battery. So there is actually a cohort of people, and I would say a growing cohort of people for whom this SSO could work well, really well. Then we've got the right size solar and battery. Well, you know, they're in the happy land. They don't need, it doesn't, to some extent, you could say it really doesn't matter what they're on. But if you want that security of being able to fill your battery on a cloudy day, then you might go to the SSO. More likely, you might go to Glowbird because you can probably get out of using your, you know, power in that 4 to 9 period. Or you might just shop around for the lowest daily supply charge because that's what you're always going to be paying. Then you might be me, a person with sufficient solar that always fills your storage from your solar, and you have excess so you can sell. And I'm going to go for Flow Power, not for the SSO, because I don't need it. I can make money and help with my return on investment. So you can see there are a lot of people that this doesn't apply for. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people that are out there that it really could apply for. You just have to find them. And those people, I think, the small solar, because you really need a battery to give you the most flexibility between that 4 and 9 hour. And certainly in Queensland, it's about keeping out of the ouch period. Anything the rest of the day is pretty good. from what I'm seeing. So those people are really going to be interested, and that's, you know, your townhouses, your older installs, and etc., etc. So why am I so excited about the SSO? Because I have found some people that will benefit from it, and they're not necessarily the richest people in the world. But also because we are on the cusp, I really, really feel, of a complete change. This is just the beginning of it. As soon as we can get, you know, the plug-in batteries up and working, the right to charge if you're in a rental sorted out, the sooner we can get batteries on all our social housing. This is so easy. Give them a 16 kilowatt battery. You fill it for 5 hours, and then the rest of the time they're on self-consume. Why not make the next 350,000 battery owners our social housing people? It would be great for the grid. That's what they're all telling us now from the ones that have already taken it. And same, what about if we have workplace charging? Every worker could then benefit, especially if they could use their tariff rate, you know, bill it to their own bills from there. And then there's the controlled load question. I'll be interested to see what the questions are there. Typically, it's 30% of your use, probably not if you're a solar owner, although, yeah, you've probably switched over. However, if you start messing with your controlled load, you know, putting it on a timer, getting someone out to take you off controlled load, you have to do that in Queensland. There is a risk that if there's a power cut, you'll slip out, your timer will slip, and you might end up in a very expensive period. So I would hesitate to say to people, oh yeah, just turn over your controlled load and you can get the benefit of SSO. It's probably true, but there's a bit of an if and a but. So see how you go with everything else. If it works, if you're savvy, if you know what you're doing, then add your controlled load to it. And so I really believe this is something exciting. I really believe it's not the end of the story, it's the start of the story. So this is a yes and moment. And I think we've just got to make sure we keep campaigning to make sure it really, really wins, because you know what? Solar is the cheapest form of energy we are ever going to see again now. And that shines during the middle of the day. It's an absolutely beautiful day here in Queensland today. I'm done.
Fantastic. Thank you, Philippa. I'm going to take over the screen here and just do a couple more slides from my perspective. So I share Philippa's message there, opinion there about the SSO being the start of something. You know, as we discussed, these standing offers sort of set the tone for the electricity market. And I think these SSOs came as a bit of a surprise to the retail market, and they've been very successful in pushing back to the regulator to say, oh, it's going to cost us money. You must make sure it doesn't cost us money. But it is a massive bat signal. Someone called it a bat signal, saying using up surplus solar in the middle of the day is valuable for all of us, and we should incentivize people to do it. And so I think as the market matures around this idea, we will see much better offers. And as Philippa showed you, the Glowberg offers are out there. OVO and AGL have had 3-hour free offers for a while. But, right? So I've just got a couple of slides for people who are thinking about whether this is worthwhile, especially if you're looking at other people's bills and you're trying to do some simple calculations to help people understand the pros and cons. All of the bills have this sort of reference price. So down here is the OVO one that I picked off, and it says 17% more than the reference price. Now, when the SSO comes in, the SSO is going to become a reference price for these 3-hour free offers. We actually, in setting up this session, chatted with Ralph Griffiths from AGL, and he muttered about, well, how the hell do people tell whether they'd be better off on a flat tariff or a time of use or an SSO? And he said, by October, all the retailers will have to be able to answer that question. If you're buying electricity or considering a contract change, they will have to be able to calculate that for you. And Energy Made Easy, you can put your NMI in. If you've got a smart meter, it'll pick up your smart meter data and push it through the system. If you're in Victoria, there's another platform that the Victorians use. I'll make sure I put that a number of these links in the stuff that I send out after this. So the reference price is a really important thing to check, but you do have to make sure you think through what reference they are referring to, because there's now three. There's the flat tariff, the time of use, and the SSO. I haven't finished doing this because I haven't had decent load profiles. I asked the Australian Energy Regulator to send me some information, and to be frank, they were useless and didn't clarify some of the information I needed. But I'm planning to do this on a blog that really focuses on each jurisdiction independently, because it's very hard to do a webinar that covers the Australia when actually it depends where you are. And I think that's the most important thing, is to keep emphasising it does depend where you are. But obviously, as we've already discussed, on a flat tariff, any profile is going to have the same sort of average cost for what you use. But the minute you get to time of use and things like that, your profile makes a hell of a difference. And what's not particularly clear is that some of the profiles change with weekends and some of them change with seasons, and that's not made clear in any of the regulator information. Once all of these new tariffs come out on the 1st of July, it will be in the fine print, but you can't get to see the fine print of a tariff offer unless you have an address that you're asking for in that jurisdiction. So I got very frustrated trying to look up Sydney and being sent back to general information on Energy Made Easy. This is how they've calculated the solar sharer offer. They've basically taken the time of use defaults and they've said, look, the amount we lose here, we're going to put all that cost onto the other times. So there is no instant answer. If you use precisely the same profile as the regulator used for the default market offer, you will be even Stevens, whether you're on the time of use or the solar sharer offer. That's what these things are designed to do. If I go back to this, you can see the way the energy regulator has calculated these three bills was all of them come to 2,320 something per year. But there is a rule of thumb that comes out of this, because all of the different jurisdictions have somewhere between 1.1 and 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour that they've added on everywhere else. So you need to save yourself, in the worst case, you need to save yourself $175 per year to make it worthwhile going to the solar sharer offer, which would be 700 kilowatt hours per year in that 3-hour period, 2 kilowatt hours per day continuously. So this sort of mirrors some of Philippa's calculations, that you actually need to move quite a bit of load, or you need a big load, like 2 kilowatt hours per day is your what my granny charger on my EV operates at. But there's not a lot of things in your house that use 2 kilowatt hour. Well, there's 640 watts continuously for 3 hours. That gives you one way of calculating it. Tariff structure does count. So, Energex have most of their 58% at this shoulder period. That's the overnight. Have I got that right? Maybe I've got those names wrong. Essential have a similar amount with their overnight period. But look at SA Power Networks, 50% of that is peak load. So another sort of heuristic, if you like, if you're calculating for people, is to simply look at the number of hours you're moving. So you're moving 13% of the hours, and you're moving them or 13 to 14% of the load according to the market offer. And you're moving them from an amount. In Queensland, it was from 7 cents to 0 cents. But, in essential energy territory, it was moving from 24 cents to 0 cents. So there's a few little shortcuts there as well. And just to sort of reinforce that story about the default market offers not great because of how it averages homes. So they're working off something like this. I couldn't get them to release their profiles. I know AEMO does produce the profiles, but then you need to write code to download stuff from the AEMO website every week. But this might be something like, here's the DMO, here's a non-solar home, and here's a solar home. And the same with gas homes. The electric homes tend to have a higher rate of use in winter, because that's when the gas homes are using gas heating, and the gas homes have a lower rate, and that's often where the peak charges are, in that afternoon period. So I'm going to stop that there and head us into some Q&A. Hopefully some of those calculations and looks at what we've been thinking through this week helps you get your head round what's happening. I'd love to hear from anyone who's not clear on the basics. And Audrey, you've been doing a great job answering some of these questions. So I wonder, can you just come off mute and answer some of the questions about embedded networks and how people will know who their retailer is and stuff?
Yeah, I can try, because it is a very confusing area of the energy system, unfortunately. So your bills tend to look different. They are usually not from a well-known retailer. If you're in an embedded network, that said, Origin does embedded network, AGL does embedded network. So sometimes you have the pretty logo, but then somewhere in the bill, usually on the first page, it tells you that it is an embedded network. What that means is that you're basically locked into the offer that your embedded network signed up for. You can't really choose what's going to happen here. So yeah, check out the bills. Unfortunately, if you're a renter, if you're just moving into a new place, there is not really a foolproof way of finding out if you're an embedded network until you actually get your first bill. It's really annoying. So yeah, that was the answer for that.
And look, I want to emphasize that the three of us agreed that it was worthwhile running this session, even though the information's only just starting to emerge from the regulator, and a lot of the retailers haven't set their new tariffs yet or haven't promoted their new tariffs heavily. But everyone is starting to get letters that say tariffs are going up on the 1st of July. Even the Victorians are getting those letters, and then presumably when the Victorians regulate their midday power saver on the 1st of October, there'll be maybe another round of letters. It will depend what the regulator enforces in Victoria. So this is a moment where people are thinking about new information, and we need to help people understand how to make these decisions thoughtfully. And I think it's also important to show that if people are on a tariff that is low in the middle of the day, they can do a lot of experimenting, bringing load into the middle of the day before they make the leap to something that's even lower, like a zero, a 3 for free or whatever. Because you can work out how feasible it is to move your load before you commit to new prices. So that's another point I wanted to make. Helen says, I thought I was, well, does anyone want to come off mute or put their hand up? I think I had a question from Phil about energy locals in Southeast Queensland and not even getting a clear read, and Audrey answered that. Phil, but are you comfortable that you now have what you need? Helen, would you like to come off mute and ask your question? Go on, Phil, you go first.
Okay. Look, I'm quite happy. It's just a matter of waiting until, they offer the plan. Whether contacting Minister Bowen might speed that up or not, I don't know. My federal MP's office couldn't do anything. Energy locals were adamant. I contacted them a couple of times. They were adamant they didn't have enough information to be able to offer the plan. So if the energy ministers can't fix it, I don't know who can.
That's right.
I must confess, I felt motivated to write to the minister myself to say it shouldn't be this hard. So, yes. Helen, are you off mute there? So Helen asked, how on earth do people who are not au fait protect themselves from those predatory billing regimes? Well, so one thing I didn't mention was that many of you will have seen under the Better Bills guidelines on the front page of your bill, the retailer has to write, you would be better off on a different plan. There's some ambiguity about that, and I've had 2 plans in a row in my house where I've changed one plan and I'm still getting a message I should have gone to another plan. So, so what's going on there? Am I expected to change every quarter? And as I said, we spoke with Ralph, and Ralph said some of this will become better in October when retailers are required to provide accurate information to households. So I think the billing information on people's bills at least has been calculated for them. And I think that's a bit of a guide as to whether people should be shifting or not. How far back that goes is a question, because what will happen is you might actually try to experiment and put some load in the middle of the day, and it won't show through on your bills for quite a while, right? Maybe for a year. So it will depend.
Can I just
Helen,
add something?
Yeah,
Can I just add something? Just keep in mind also that there is a better offer thing on your bill, on the first page of your bill, is actually just for this retailer. So the retailer has an obligation to tell you if they have themselves, this specific retailer, a better offer. They do not have an obligation to tell you if another retailer has a better offer. If you want to find that out, you need to go to Energy Made Easy or Vic Compare. And this is also something that is not quite sorted out, where Energy Made Easy doesn't seem to be very good at calculating where the best offer is. So there is a lot of bend in the gears right now because we've added a lot of complexity without having the tools that were ready for us to actually really understand what to do here. So just to reiterate again, and we've said this a few times, so I just wanted to say, don't rush into a solar share offer. Try to shift your load, see what that looks like. And if you find out that it's easy for you and it kind of works out, then shift the tariff, particularly if you're talking to vulnerable households. It's really important to express to them that rushing is not necessary. Those offers will be there. They will stay. Yeah.
Julian, would you like to ask your question yourself?
Sure. So we've got a solar hot water system on our roof. It's electrically boosted, and we probably use quite a lot of electricity in winter. We're in southern Victoria. So I'm just thinking out loud to myself, would that be a good strategy to use SSO and do that electrical boosting in the middle of the day?
And do you know if you have that boost on controlled load or not?
It's not on controlled load, no.
Yeah. So a lot of people's hot water's on controlled load. I'm in the same boat as you, but my boost is on controlled load. So for you with your timer, it would certainly be worth, and you're in Victoria, so you need to wait till 1st of October to find
Yeah.
out what they offer. It would certainly be worth considering. You don't have rooftop solar, I take it?
Yes, we do. We've got a small 3 kilowatt system.
So you are worth moving into the middle of the day and seeing how much you can get your boost to soak up your spare surplus solar over summer. And by the time you get towards winter, you'll be able to make that judgment about whether you should flip over to the solar share offer. For me, with it being on controlled load, I actually need to pay for an electrician to move it off controlled load. So there's maybe a $600 visit fee, already for electrical work. And I heard Philippa and let the alarm bells ring when she said timers can go out of sync. So you could be very precise and try very hard. Remember that these are local time. So they've tried to set it so that we don't have to think through whether we're in daylight savings or not. But the downside of that is your clock needs to adjust to daylight savings, or you need to go out and adjust your clock with daylight savings. So there's quite a bit of little bits and pieces to think through there. And yeah, what a shame
Yeah.
it's not
And I think
simpler.
the other aspect is boosting with the mains for 3 hours in the middle of the day. Is that enough to give you hot water the following morning?
That's right. And a heat pump needs a longer run time, but maybe if we get more tariffs that are really starting to suppress those middle of the day prices and make them off-peak prices, then you can afford to warm up your hot water all day, all through the day. It does depend on your showering regime too, right? So
Yeah.
you actually don't want to compete with the sun might do it for me versus
Yeah.
the night time. So that's a problem with solar for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Heather.
My hot water systems always lose the time of day when we have a power cut. So there you go. And you have to do maintenance every time you have a power cut. I'm going to give two plugs before we cut out here. One of our webinars, and you will all get links when I email all of this back out to everyone. One of our webinars was with the Essential Energy crew and the Home of the Future work that they've done, controlling everything and making everything flexible. So for people who are interested in moving their load, I recommend a watch of that webinar. We've got a data project this year that we've got some funding from Energy Consumers Australia to work with CSIRO. CSIRO have a National Energy Analysis Centre and a living lab. So for people who are interested, and I will include this information in the mail out, for people who are interested in knowing more about their energy consumption and having a dashboard, they can look at stuff and see the impact of how moving their energy around. Yes, sometimes your retailers offer these sorts of platforms, but the Living Lab also helps people get access to that sort of thing in return for the CSIRO using your data for research purposes. But we're all going to be better off with good energy data in the energy system. So I would recommend considering participating in their Living Lab. So I've gone over and I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much, Audrey and Philippa. That's been really great. I hope it's answered a lot of your questions, everyone, and you are most welcome to write to us with more questions if we've left anything out. I'm going to close this out. Thank you very much again and stay tuned for subsequent webinars.